Welcome to Don't Follow the Shepherd. This podcast is inspired by my eclectic career journey and the lived experiences of others who have taken unconventional and unexpected vocational detours. Some were influenced by circumstances, others by their psychological and spiritual growth, or a combination of both factors. Others discovered early on that should is the most dangerous word in our vocabulary. They don't succumb typically to peer or parental pressures. Our psychological and spiritual depth, emotional intelligence, and our mental health influence how we choose and identify with our professions, approach our work-life balance, and find fulfillment in our livelihoods and beyond. On this podcast, we will examine jobs and careers through a biopsychosocial lens, highlighting stories of passion, drive, courage, resilience, fear, loss, grief, growth, and healing. Uh, so I'm excited to introduce you to Gretchen Ashton, who founded ScubaFit. And she's had her own interesting story, life experiences with family, etc., overcoming different obstacles that are thrown in life's way. But she's really entrepreneurial in coming up with a niche conditioning program, a conditioning practice for scuba divers. And as you can imagine, it takes a lot of exertion and conditioning just to be able to get certified and some determination for sure. And so she's really kind of covered that niche going way back to the 90s. So welcome. And tell us about your credentials too, because you got a lot of them, and I don't know what all the acronyms stand for.
Hi, Jordan. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited about sharing the whole ScubaFit path, and I'll touch on my credentials just for a moment. I'm a personal trainer. I have 5 credentials through International Sports Sciences Association, including fitness therapy, specialist in fitness nutrition, strength and conditioning, and I'm also nationally board certified with National Board of Fitness Examiners. So that's just a step up, of having a wide understanding of fitness to help a lot of different folks, including peer reviews and things of that nature. So, but back to ScubaFit, I guess I could say that way back as far as high school, I looked for my sport and I couldn't quite find my sport. It was before Title IX, which is an interesting perspective to have today. And also, it wasn't until my 30s that I discovered what my natural ability was in the gym. And in high school, they didn't actually allow girls in the gym. That was for football players. And we could do track and field, we could do swimming, we could do softball, volleyball, those things. But in my 30s, I was always kind of a tomboy. Outdoor recreation was my thing, hiking, uh, backpacking, playing sports with my son, and being part of, team sports, team mom, assistant coach, things like that. But in my 30s, I felt like I was getting out of shape and I started my own path towards just staying healthy and well.
So, yeah, it's interesting because today fitness is more embedded in the lifestyles of people. Like, some people, there's so many different niche fields within the fitness and wellness industry. But I remember back then that, uh, certainly you had the gym. And well, my mom was a dietitian, so I also was kind of familiar with that stuff. But today, uh, some people couldn't imagine that there wasn't a whole lot of self-care in the way we understand it today. Like
Mhm.
it's natural for someone to be born after 2000 or something like that to think, oh, of course I'm going to go work out. Of course
Mhm.
I'm going to hike a couple days a week, go to the gym so much, blah blah blah. I mean, we didn't even necessarily have gyms like they have today. So it's kind of interesting to think about that now and kind of the journey you've taken,
Mhm.
especially to build a niche. And I'm always interested because as a person in the wildlife field, I was interested in marine sciences, and it's such an interesting way to explore nature, but it's kind of high tech at the same time. And in fact, I don't want to talk too much. One of Jacques Cousteau's granddaughters went to Skidmore College, where I went at the time we were there. She's a couple of years older than me, but anyways. Very interesting, and I'll let you take it from there. So tell us a little bit more specifically about ScubaFit and how you built that up.
Okay. Well, as I developed my own fitness path and got into shape, I found that I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I had a lot of folks in my family that were not healthy. And so part of my motivation was, wow, if they just would work out a little bit, if they would just change the way they eat a little bit, they could be healthy and well. And I was just naturally concerned and worried about them and their longevity. And I wanted my family to live a long time. And so I decided, even though I was raising children and married and busy, that I was going to become a fitness professional. And after I did that, a few years into it, I also got certified as a diver. I started training in the late 90s. It was my third career. I was already into my 30s before I decided to do that. And I just decided that it was something I wanted to do forever, almost as if it was my love work or my passion. And it ended up allowing me to help my family members and then help other folks too. I worked in big gyms for quite a while. I went to every gym I could go to. I I learned about every piece of equipment and every way to use it. And then I discovered that really the huge market for teaching people about fitness and how it could benefit them was outside the gym. So I got the idea to start a fitness studio. I had one of the first two private studios in North San Diego County. I opened it in 2000. That was a very new idea at the time. Now we have boutique gyms on every corner. It seems like very specialized types, Pilates or functional training or CrossFit or so forth. Mine was a personal training studio where people could come and have private one-on-one training. And it was only 1,000 square feet, but very quickly we had 150 private clients training there, and I was working 60 hours a week. So, and during that time, I also took up powerlifting and was doing 5 major competitions a year and set 21 American and 21 world records in powerlifting over 8 years, benching 220 at age 45 in the lifetime drug-free division. And I never, ever saw that chapter in my life coming my way. But also during that time, I met scuba divers living in Southern California. It was something that was inevitable, I think. And then they piqued my interest in learning to dive. So I was certified in 2000. And when I was certified, I couldn't help but wonder, are there fitness programs for divers? I would get on a dive boat and I would kind of look around at the divers on the boat, and I would get in the water and I would feel what it felt like to fin kick swim in a current, to walk to the beach and do a shore dive with all your gear on your body, to climb out of the water with your gear on up a boat ladder. And all of that already registered with me. Oh yeah, they could do this exercise for that, or they can, do that aerobic routine for that. And so I looked and looked and looked for fitness programs for divers, and I found a few things, but I didn't find practical applications of fitness for diving. And so I developed the program. I started sharing it with the diving community and met a few dive instructors that were very interested in it. One of them was the program director for Los Angeles County's underwater instructor program. And we put our heads together and we co-submitted it to PADI, which is, I believe, the largest dive certifying agency in the world. I think they certify about 80% of all divers. And I think it was the first time that two professionals had come together from different industries, and we co-submitted the distinctive specialty to PADI and gained their endorsement for it. And so now it's in an online classroom where dive instructors can go and take the course, and then they can teach it to their diving clients. Also, I went to International Sports Sciences Association because I thought, wow, this is an opportunity for a lot of personal trainers to help scuba divers if they knew the specifics of the program. And so ISSA approved it as continuing education units for personal trainers. So the course is also available as 10 CEUs for fitness professionals.
Wow, what comes to mind, of course, is Coronado and Navy SEALs and amphibious work. How did that? Did you do any? Was there anything that you resourced from military in any regard, or was there any overlap or collaboration at any point? I mean, I guess Navy
Well,
SEALs are already highly conditioned.
yeah, the military training program is quite advanced over recreational diving. But interestingly, the very first invitation I got to speak to a dive club was to the Hammerhead Dive Club on Camp Pendleton.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I was invited by a Marine, I think he might staff sergeant at the time, I think. And anyway, he was a diver and he thought it would benefit his club. And so then I went on to speak at dive clubs, and there's a big scuba show in Long Beach every year. And I've been a presenter at that show for, gosh, a long time, maybe more than 15 years with the whole concept. And I think the most important thing for trainers who might be interested in this is to know that the course is based in research and science. I was able to meet personally and discovered through an introduction from a friend in the diving community, one of the pioneers of recreational scuba diving, who actually started the kinesiology program at UCLA. Dr. Glenn Egstrom, and he worked with Dr. Backrack at the Navy Behavioral Sciences Center, and they developed so many programs and did so much great research that, in my opinion, was key to bridging the fitness industry and the dive industry.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is that when undergraduates take a physiology course, they go into dive physiology, mammalian. We use pinniped models and cetacean models to kind of study more in physiological ecology, but it is a very interesting field. And the other thing I was going to say is most of the big public aquariums have volunteer dive
They
personnel.
do.
When I was at the New England Aquarium in Boston 100,000 years ago, we had a whole big team of volunteer divers. I don't know how they would actually get the job done if they didn't have all these volunteer divers. And then those people, are also recreational divers, so they're naturalists, they're underwater naturalists, and they serve the interests of the aquarium. So for sure.
I love those programs. They do that at the Sea Life Aquarium here in Carlsbad, that Long Beach Aquarium, Monterey. It's and then that also, includes the scientific divers and the research divers too. Everybody needs to stay in shape for diving. Everybody needs to stay in good shape for life and good health. But also, if you're going to take on an activity where you're going to be in an environment where we're not intended to survive unless we have special equipment, then you want to pay attention, I think, to what kinds of fitness activities can sort of support that physiology the best. and also stay healthy, free from disease and illness so that you can continue diving because it's incredible to be down there. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of ocean wildlife I've had the opportunity to experience, including sharks at Guadalupe Island, great white sharks at Guadalupe Island, Mexico. And one of the things I do to motivate divers is I relate the workouts to very specific
My own.
things about diving. Yeah, I relate it to diving. So for example, I have destination workouts. I've done complete like 25-page digital publications where it's it's a fit diver program and it's all about if you're going to go to Palau, pick up this book, or work out 12 weeks before you go to Palau, where I've been, right? And so I've developed this custom workout based on the dive sites, the dive conditions, the logistics of the dive operator, um, what fitness level it kind of requires, and what diving training it kind of, in relation to what level of diving training they need. To be able to go on this trip and enjoy the activity. Um, I was surprised when we went to Taveuni, Fiji, because my husband and I are pretty experienced divers, but the third day of diving the Somo Straits, my butt was kicked. And that kind of surprised me. So I was able to do it. It just meant I had to take a nap that day. And then I was ready to go again the next day. But those insights are really helpful for people who maybe only have 50 dives and they're going to go on a trip, or they just have never been there, so they don't know what to expect. So I like to write about destination workouts that are very specific to those destinations, but I also relate it to marine life. For example, the Maui strength and endurance workout that I developed, it's all related to the humpback whale because the humpback whale, they migrate through the islands a certain time of year, and they have huge whale counts there. And you stand on the shore even, and you see the whale spouts, and you hear the tail slaps, and you watch the breaches. And then when you're underwater, you hear the whale songs and the whale calls underwater. It's just a really amazing experience. And so you want to be able to have a good experience when you go someplace like that and be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I used to census gray whales. I think it was St. Ignacio Lagoon. I forget which.
Mhm.
And then on the Sea of Cortez, which is also beautiful. Even in Australia, the Great Barrier Reef, I didn't dive there, but I do think it's interesting because it's kind of like an astronaut. You have to be conditioned well before you put on a suit. And so it's kind of the beauty of working out is that, you're staying fit so that you can do this.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll get conditioned afterwards or I'll learn how hard it is. And I think the beauty of these kinds of things is that it keeps people fit, as you said, to improve their health span and their lifespan. So
Mhm.
um, uh, it's great. It's great conditioning, and at the same time, people are much more conscientious about water quality and environmental concerns. It's a
Mhm.
little different, like than in say going on safari or bear viewing in Alaska or in Churchill. Like you you're species focused and you may be cognizant of environmental issues, but when you work with marine life, that whole ecosystem is something you're in all, you have a different appreciation, I think, for the environment when you're an oceanographer or marine biologist. Uh, and again, like you said, well, researchers even, I mean, if they want to study cetaceans, they got to get in the water with them, and they can do that today. And that,
Mhm.
it's different when you're a terrestrial biologist, the technology. I don't want to say it's any less innovative, but people long ago didn't think of the possibilities. But back then, when they wanted to study an animal in the ocean, they had to think of how to get closer. So, um, yeah, I think that's pretty
And
cool. Go ahead, sorry.
one of the great things about the scuba diving community is there's such a passion for the ocean and the ocean's well-being, and everything from removing plastic from the ocean to helping uh, uh, specific species, adapt and survive. I remember one of our dive trips, there was a biologist there who was actually removing an invasive sea urchin from the area and relocating it. Lionfish are now hunted, I should say, or collected, and are now being served in restaurants. They're also an invasive species and they don't have a lot of predators. So folks across the globe, especially dive professionals, are teaching sharks how to eat this fish as
Mhm.
as a food source to help balance the, what would you call it? Jordan, to help balance the
Ecosystem.
equilibrium or the
Oh,
ecosystem, yeah, of the different. Um, I wanted to share something encouraging about the condition of the ocean too, because sometime a personal experience I had. We hear a lot of stories about coral bleaching in different areas, and there are some big problems. Sometimes it's just because trees were cut down and soil started eroding into the ocean in that spot, and that the coral was ruined, right? It could be a small island that has a catastrophic coral loss, or it could be just from pollution, or some folks talk about global warming in relation to that. I was in Palau, and one of the places that we went was Peleliu Island. And Peleliu is famous for uh, a World War II battle. Um,
mhm.
and when that battle was over, they thought it was going to take a few days. It ended up taking months. The island was completely strafed. There was no vegetation. Imagine all of the military vehicles coming ashore and what they might have done to the coral and everything surrounding the island, and all of the, bombing and everything that was going on. And so here I find myself there 70 years later, and we did a tour of the island, and there's only small areas of the island where the folks that live there can go because there's so much ordnance left on the island. It's not safe to go off the road or off the path. But the entire island is completely grown back. It's lush, tropical, beautiful. But more than that, we dove some of the beaches where the military had come ashore, and I've only seen a few places in the world that are as pristine as like coral gardens at Peleliu Island. And so I wanted to share that because imagine it just being like decimated, and here 70 years later, it's all back and beautiful, and there's fish there, and there's vegetation there, and there's coral there, so um, nature has a way, the ocean in particular, I think, has a way of healing itself if we give it a chance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing that's interesting to me is the advent of underwater cameras and the advances in
Mhm.
technology. Limnologists and these freshwater biologists. I think that the opportunity I forget it's there's a famous there's a famous quote by an environmental advocate. I almost want to say he was from Mozambique, but I could be wrong. And he said, he's a very famous guy, and he said something to the effect of, "We only protect what we can see," and
Mhm.
going to like the notion that people can now go into freshwater bodies and brackish water, mangrove, and lagoons, and like take pictures of things that weren't available before is another way to enhance the protection. And
Yes.
so I think freshwater is probably maybe less desirable for some, but I think it's just as fascinating.
Mhm.
You know.
Yes, I just saw an article on a few wrecks up in Lake Tahoe that
Hmm.
our divers are taking advantage of. And then there's quarries that have been filled with water and turned into dive locations. In Florida, there's a diving with the manatees there.
Hmm.
And in Palau, we went to Jellyfish Lake, which is not a saltwater lake. It's a freshwater lake, and there are jellyfish in there that have adapted to the freshwater, and they don't sting either. And when you get in the water, you're just very gentle and you snorkel in and you just move slow and you're surrounded by more than thousands of jellyfish, a lot of jellyfish. And it's kind of a magical experience. It's a really special place to go. So I would say if you're already into fitness, and this is kind of something I've been trying to get the dive industry to see a little bit, is that if you reach out with a fitness program from your dive center and find people in your community that are already fit, it turns out that folks that are fit are more likely to learn to dive. They're more likely to dive more often. They're more likely to advance their training. And so there's a crossover market here, in addition to just the role model that I'm excited about, and that's helping divers stay fit and be able to do it for a long time. There's a really great crossover market here, and an opportunity to create community, around a dive center or around a fitness facility and bring them together.
Well, I mean, I would also think that, you know, the crossover is also with, I mean, not that that many people are free diving, but there's still the benefit to like swimming. I mean,
Mhm.
just it, you're already like, if you're in that direction, why not expand your capacity to free dive, or or
Mhm.
you're going snorkeling, whatever. I mean, all these things, um, there's some synergies there, and I think it is a great way to bring fit people into nature, because um, it presents a challenge for people. I mean, you could say to people, hey, become a better hiker, but not everybody is climbing the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. But if you live in Southern California in a coastal region, you could be diving quite frequently.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of
Well,
potential.
free diving is definitely a big part of the scuba diving community now. At least there's training and credentials, and
Hmm.
different agencies have different offerings, right? Snorkeling, yes. They're getting kind of younger and younger with junior dive programs to bring in sort of a new generation of divers. One thing that's happened in both fitness and the diving industries over the last, I would say, 10 years, is it used to be when you were certified as a diver or a personal trainer, you could see the end of the tunnel when it came to how far your training might go. There might be 5 certifications or there might be 10, right? I was looking at a major dive agency the other day. I wanted to see how many certifications. They're offering 94 different certifications for people to choose from, and somebody else has 16 and somebody else has 26. And the same thing has happened in the fitness industry. There's so many offerings available. I just did this last year with, I shared with you that my dad has dementia. I've been really focusing on helping keep folks with dementia on their feet so they're easier to care for. And we do that through fitness, and we manage their sleep and we manage their mood and all of those things. But there's also brain fitness training for corporate executives, even there. And there is also a lot of new training surrounding weight loss drugs, like the GLP-1s. Those practices surrounding weight loss have been an integral part of any weight loss program. They're not unique to GLP-1 drugs. in many ways, except for maybe the side effects a little bit. It's something that the old timers like myself in the industry know to expect identity shifts and things like that when people go through weight loss programs. But because it's such a important topic right now, there's a lot of education going into helping professionals understand how to work with clients, whether they're emotional support or their trainer or they're their physician. There's a lot of training going on in that area as well right now. And then what about the person who's in that program and they also want to be, go scuba diving? Is that going to change anything? And what kinds of questions do dive professionals have about that? So there's just so much, there's so much great opportunity out there to reach people. And there's also a lot of noise. And there can be a lot of misinformation too. And sometimes I think I'm just one person.
Well, there's also like I have a friend uh who is he's now the assistant chief of the fire department in Anchorage. And they
Mhm.
have, I don't know how many battalions, but one of them focuses on underwater work, right? And so
Mhm.
law enforcement, LAPD has a big diving, like the sheriff's department, all those people percolate into the recreational space as well. And so I think that's really interesting. And I was going to say about firefighters, I don't I'm not terribly versed on it, but firefighting associations have all kind of preventive health programs, and they're wearing heavy equipment, and there's a lot of similarities, although it's not so much recreational, but there's a lot of overlap. I think I should put you in touch with this guy I had not on the podcast not long ago, Tom Lancaster. He's a he's what is he call himself a adventure consciousness coach, and he helps people in the psycho-spiritual realm, but he takes them into very challenging places, whether you're climbing, rock climbing, mountain climbing in Nepal, or you're in Yosemite somewhere at work. I mean, but the idea is that again, getting in touch with nature is a life-changing. Scuba diving for the first time for people can be so uh, exhilarating. And
Mhm.
so I think again, ways to find we didn't talk much about the mental health benefits, but the you talked about some brain health benefits, but the
Mhm.
mental health benefits of doing some of these things, besides just the connection with like-minded people, is
Yes.
very important.
Yes, absolutely. That part of diving, there's almost no words for. When you're underwater, it's so peaceful, right? It's so peaceful. There's beautiful colors, there's incredible fish. You're buoyant, you're weightless. It's the feel of the water on your skin. Um, yeah, there's just no words for it, but it keeps me going back. A lot of people feel like it's very much a part of their mental health. A lot of divers talk about that aspect, yeah. And with the firefighters, my son has been a firefighter, and we've talked about that quite a bit about all of those. And he got certified as a diver too, and we talked about a lot of those comparisons. Unfortunately, I've had the opportunity to work with firefighters that were getting ready for their fire academy, or they were getting ready to move from one department to another, and they were going in for a promotion from, maybe to captain or something, and they had to really, go through an additional uh, testing requirement. And then also Los Angeles County's underwater instructors program, they are involved with all the lifeguards for
Yeah.
the up there, and also the corners, the folks that work with the corners, the rescue and recovery divers, and so forth. Some of the things you were mentioning, yeah. And then diving also has a a, a very popular I want to say new, but it's not really new. It's been around for a while. Something called what they call tech diving, where they're trying to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so it gets very complicated for us recreational divers because it's all about unique mixes of the gases because
Mm.
there might be going down, 300 feet or something, and they're wearing multiple tanks on them.
Yeah, I mean,
And
when you take an undergraduate physiology class, whether you have a proclivity for diving or water sports in general, when you hear about the bends, you don't, it's maybe they should couch it a little differently these days, but I mean, way back when, it's enough to scare you. And then you think about, but what is miraculous is, you know, I always was more into, well, I don't want to say more, but I liked pinnipeds as much as I liked cetaceans. And so
uh-huh.
for me, like for example, just I don't know if I was free diving, but this in the Sea of Cortez, we always had someone who was counting sea lions. We always had the other person looking for tiger sharks. And so it's pretty amazing to see these animals uh see these apex predators and these marine mammals on their turf like a sea lion rookery and be swimming around it. It's just a different experience because particularly today in social media land we get glimpses of things, but it's hard to translate that into experience. And this is one of those areas where it's impossible to translate the experience into the visual. Like that movie, The Octopus, what was that like that
The
was amazing.
octopus teacher. The octopus teacher.
Yeah, yeah. That was like amazing, but to think about what goes into that and like to put that production together, pretty exhilarating footage. The other thing I think too is that um I just mentioned this the other day. One of my friends who was a big scuba diver and was a mentor of mine, he was an aquarist at a zoological park. And um, you know, you'd think I'm almost making a generalization that this big fit person has to work with large mammals, but he was fascinated with invertebrate fauna, with microbiomes, with corals, and that's what we're not so interested in soil microbes. They're not as sexy as the microbes in the ocean, right? And so
Uh-huh.
there's something to be said for um, anyone working with an aquatic ecosystem is going to be more inclined to get a little more in touch with the invertebrate fauna than if you're studying soil microbes.
Mhm.
And it's just a sexier, it's just a whole different ball game. But so and even aquatic plants, like I used to be very into um, uh, building ponds and freshwater ponds and kind of decorative ponds. And even though it was freshwater and koi and stuff like that, there's just a
Mhm.
different element for people who like water space. In fact, one of the funny things I tell people is when I was at the New England Aquarium in Boston, a Harvard Business School paid probably I don't know how much, but a significant amount of money to have us go up to the Harvard Business School and feed the fish and take care of the maintenance and the life support for a koi pond. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, wow, because I mean, as a kid, I had marine fish. I had puffer
Mhm.
fish and um, different kind. What did I have? Uh, I just had an assortment of marine fish. Uh, and again, I think that reef fishes teach people about ecosystems in ways that they wouldn't get in a textbook. And one extension of the marine fish hobbyist is to become a scuba diver. So
Mhm. Sure. Well, it sounds like we need to get you back in the water.
I barely I barely see grass these days. I'm in LA and I'm in a urban sprawl.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
hear
no,
you.
thank you. I think it's very interesting. And I think there are just so many, in terms of scuba diving, I think there's so many applications that people would never even think of, from search and rescue to law enforcement,
Mhm,
maritime activities, uh,
mhm.
to oceanography and
Yeah.
yeah.
And Jordan, there's ways to bring different businesses to the scuba diving community too. Let's say you're an accountant, but you want to learn to dive. Well, every dive center needs an accountant, right? Because just because someone is a dive instructor or a dive professional, that doesn't mean they're also have the business savvy. Or if they do have all the business savvy and they're set up like some places that own, 5 dive shops, well, they need all the folks to help them run those businesses. And so there's a lot of different business interests or, educational or professional interests that can come into the diving community and enjoy the sport of the recreational sport of diving and still bring whatever it is they do, just like I did with fitness. Some people are doing it with executive coaching, others are doing it with marketing, right? There's obviously there's trade organizations that they could reach out to, or just look for, the job at the dive center instead of,
Yeah, I
instead.
mean, maybe I should talk to you. I'll talk to you after we end about this. But the other thing I was going to say, even the cruise ships,
Mhm.
I know they used to offer open water dives and people go on vacations and stuff. But I didn't do this, but I was invited to be like the natural. All those cruise ships, as you know, they have the naturalists on there talking about stuff. But there's not a lot of overlap with, like, the naturalist gives their lecture. Let's say they see polar bears, or they see say whales, whatever it is. They're done with their job usually when they give their lecture, their free courtesy offering to go on these trips, but they could be much more enmeshed with the diving programs, and maybe they are to some degree now, but I sense that the guest speakers, the entertainment, the talent are still very different from the people who are doing the work on shore. So there's just
Mhm.
different ways for people to overlap.
Mhm. There's resort programs where you as a naturalist could host a program at a resort, a destination resort.
Well,
You
definitely.
can, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. REI, I used to do something with REI with like
Mhm.
bear deterrent.
Mhm.
As you know, I am interested in the marketing component, like the bear spray world. I was like, wow, I could present with a live bear actually. And
You
yet
could.
REI, it's just interesting how you can reach different audiences in a retail market where you've got such specialties these days.
Mhm.
So,
That's right. That's
well,
right.
thank you so much. How do people reach you at divefit.com, right?
Well,
I mean,
scubafit.com,
ScubaFit, sorry,
that's okay. Dive Fit, ScubaFit, and Fit Diver are all my trademarks.
domains. Oh, good for
So
you.
they're all going to take you to the same place. And once you get there, not only can you find the ScubaFit course if you want to take it, which is pretty much everything that I ever do for a client anyway. It's just that it has the scuba diving twist on what's important based in the science we know. And then also there are 130 published articles that were in different dive magazines and online publications over the years, and many of them have workouts associated with them. And you can link either to the publication or some of those publications. I've been doing this so long that some of those publications aren't there anymore. There are PDFs that can be downloaded too. And so I would encourage anyone who is maybe already a diver and they're interested in changing up their exercise a little bit, they can go take the course or they can go to the articles page and they can look through and find something interesting uh, um, for them, you know, whether it's a shore diving workout or for on a liveaboard boat for a week, or if you want to go to the Bahamas, here's your workout. If you want to go to Hawaii, here's your workout, you know, and look there and then reach out to me, Gretchen at scubafit.com.
Okay.
I'm here.
Sounds great. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for participating. Really fascinating field, and hearing how you were kind of a pioneer in many ways for this stuff. So, um, it's probably so weird to see the world evolve where people are so much more interested in being fit. But
Yeah, we didn't have YouTube or podcasts, or there were days in the gym when I would have asked a client to come in for an extra workout that week, but I wouldn't be able to meet with them, where I would take a cassette tape and I would record the message to them about their workout, and they would listen to it while they were walking around the gym because that was the best we had, right? Or they had to carry around a piece of paper, you know, and you're drawing little stick figures for them, which, you know, we moved on from. But anyway, it's very interesting the way things are, so much information is available today. It's fascinating, it's helpful, and it sometimes overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I will definitely share your link when I post this, and I appreciate you joining. So thank you so much.
Thank you.